My name's Alan Bugg, and I'm the founder of a small registered charity called Cancer is a Drag. I personally had cancer myself, diagnosed in September 2010. It was stage 4 lymphoma, which is very similar to leukemia. I had one round of 10 to 12 sessions of chemo for the first year, and then got into remission, but unfortunately it came back. Same thing happened again with a different chemotherapy the second time, and then the third time it was found that unless I had a stem cell transplant, I only had a couple of years to live. So my brother got tested, and my only sibling, and he was a 10 out of 10 match. So in November 2013, I had a stem cell transplant. That took a good year to recover from, but since that time, I've been in remission. When I had cancer, even since diagnosis, I found that my friends and family really came together to support me, and if anything, that's what helped me get through the trauma of it. I'm very lucky to have a partner of 19 years now, and I think without him I wouldn't have been able to get through such a devastating experience. The hospital were very supportive, especially during all of the medications, chemotherapy, and some charities were there to offer support and give you a little bit of help, but really, with regards to, shall we say, finance and the government and benefits, that was very lacking. What I did find was that during that time, the emotional and mental stress that went with the cancer diagnosis was the one thing that wasn't really being looked after by anybody, and you felt like you had to deal with that on your own. I did have a counsellor at King's College Hospital, bone marrow transplant counsellor, that helped me get through the different stages of the bone marrow transplant itself, which was very frightening because it's only 50-50 chance of survival. But the stress of diagnosis and the trauma that went with that and all of the treatments wasn't really dealt with by anybody, unfortunately, and then there wasn't that many people to turn to, so that became quite difficult, and you had to deal with that on your own. When I first went into remission, the first time after the first year, I found that friends and family started to act a little bit different towards you because they're not so worried anymore. They think you've got over it. They think you should be fit and well and jumping up and down and getting back to work and living your life and they actually think that you should be really happier than you necessarily are. But what happens is the first time you go into remission, you just go into a great big slump of kind of like, phew, I've used all my energy to get through that, and I now need time out, and I need to sort of think about what I've been through. And unfortunately, there's not anything available. People aren't around, GPs and doctors are not around sort of saying to you, are you okay mentally? How do you feel? There's no counselling offered to you or anything like that. So you're just expected to just get on with it. And sometimes I even had people say to me, so why are you so miserable? Or what are you down about? You've beaten cancer. You should be on top of the world. And it's not like that at all. Yes, you've beaten cancer, but you have this ingrown fear that it's going to come back. And of course, in my case, it did come back. So it was very difficult sometimes to not actually get annoyed with other people, even close friends, because they seemed to expect so much from you that you weren't capable of giving. The thing with me was that I didn't want cancer to win, even though after the third diagnosis, when I finally got into remission after the stem cell transplant, I didn't want cancer to win in the respect that like it had stopped me from going to work for like a couple of years, in out, and I wanted to go back to being a primary school teacher, and I didn't want cancer to take that away from me. That was something that I had in my head, but I had a very weak, shall we say, immune system, and being a primary school teacher, obviously that was quite difficult. I had a staged return to work, which was very slow. It was over 12 weeks, and that was very, very useful. But again, it was like I said before, once I was in the building and I was with the children and I started working or with my colleagues, it's like all of my cancer and everything was completely forgotten by everybody else, and everything I'd been through was completely forgotten by everybody else. And so you start to feel very alone, and that people don't understand how you're feeling, and you get this time when you're trying to do your best and trying to be the person that you were before, and I was classed as a very good teacher, and you don't seem to be coming up to the mark, and there's so much other stuff going on with your health, physically and mentally, because of what you've been through. And it doesn't seem to be very visible to your boss or your colleagues, and that's partly because you're covering it up yourself as well, because you want everyone to think that you're okay. But inside, you're not really okay, and mentally and emotionally, you're definitely not okay. And unfortunately, there isn't really I didn't find any support for that. And within time, that in itself, I think, has turned into post-traumatic stress disorder, which has now been diagnosed by my GP. And even though I'm dealing with that and I'm getting counselling, it feels like now the cancer has got another hold on me, and I now need to sort myself out again. Whilst I was going through treatment, I found that, especially at the beginning, everybody's there for you, everyone's supporting you. Well, I was lucky in that respect. And their love and their caring, in a way, it pulls you through. In your own mind, you don't think you're going to make it, but you have this kind of inner strength that says that you've got to try your best, and you sort of think about your willpower to actually get through it, and sometimes you want to get through it for other people as well, because I wanted to make sure that I wasn't dead for my parents. I wanted to make sure I wasn't dead for my partner. But most of the time, every day you get up and you do actually start the day by thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make this, and you really need all of that kind of love that's given to you to sort of like spur you on. So nowadays, I feel really happy because I know that I've been in remission now for 5 years. So I've actually reached the 5-year target, which they set up to sort of like say to you that it's very unlikely that it will come back, or after 3 episodes of it, that makes me feel good. But at the same time, I still check underneath my arms and various other parts of my body when I'm having a shower, where I used to find lumps and get re-diagnosed, my lymph glands and stuff like that. So the thought of it coming back is still there. I have unfortunately at the moment been diagnosed with PTSD, mainly because I think I burnt out at work. And for the last 4 years, I've tried so hard to get back to normal and be the same person that I was before. And all of the stress, I couldn't really cope with it. And I hadn't really dealt with the fact that I had the cancer diagnosis, as such to say, in a way that, like, it's sort of, oh, it's all over, move on, turn a corner. It's not like that. And unfortunately, because of that, I think I've suffered. I've got a few health issues as well, which have come from the stem cell transplant with regards to sort of some osteoporosis and emphysema and stuff like that. Generally, health-wise, I feel good. And I just feel like I need to take one more step in the right direction to get back to living properly. But it's a new me. It's not the same. I'm not the same person I was before. My personality's still there. I've got the same personality traits, but there's something different about me, and it's really had a massive effect. And that, I think, is sometimes the thing that other people can't understand, because they just see you as they used to see you, and they think of you as a hero for beating cancer, but then they don't think much more of it. But you've still got it all going on in your head all the time. I don't think it'll ever go away.